So then we are back with more understandings from the Renewed Covenant. This is from the Aramaic understanding and comes from the Hebrew line, the Hebrew understanding of the scriptures. Many people, they read the Greco-Roman understanding. There are lots of information in those types of translations. The only situation goes on with it is regarding the area of the prophetic layers of understanding. The Greco-Roman Bible omits the fact, and this is when it becomes very dangerous. There is a concept of a Savior in it, but unfortunately it is distorted. But it is a distortion that came as a result of an understanding that the Torah had no validity in the position of the task before faith. Okay? So then, the Torah has its place. It was never abolished. The Torah, however, is not part of the Gentiles as before a covenant, a dam covenant done with Abraham and the Creator. So the part that was lacking in understanding of the Roman Greco understanding was then Torah was not abolished. The fact was, and the truth of it was, the Torah is valid, but it is valid to the set-apart people. The Gentiles, they have the guidelines based in the Torah, but the Torah in its covenant is not part of the Gentiles. So then this is the part that they should be concerned with and then return to the Hebraic understanding. Because the Greco-Roman Bible portrays a Savior that is false. Why is it false? Because it breaks the biblical law. Whatsoever the Messiah did, we must do as an example shown in the guidelines of faith. Guidelines of faith, not Torah covenant. So then the guidelines of faith shows and portrays a specific Messiah that never broke biblical law. So before the Creator, as we ourselves, Gentiles, in the capacity of faith only, must be also before Him in loyalty, including the seventh day. But then maintaining the seventh day in the capacity of faith without the demands of the Torah. And that's why then Shaul was explaining to his countrymen, after Shaul was then preaching and teaching to the Gentiles as he was told to do by Ruach HaKodesh, he sometimes would come against his own countrymen in protection of the Gentiles. What was the fight over then? The fight with his countrymen was this: please don't come and then teach the demands of the Torah to the Gentiles, because they were saved by faith. But then since the Gentiles, they were tender and they were fragile in their baby steps of faith, then they would become defensive. And with a positive reason, because they were then confronted with a dangerous Torah, only meant for those set apart in their camps. The Torah was never meant to be outside of the camp. However, then there were brothers from his own countrymen that would come on their own and they would try then to force the Torah upon the Gentiles. And precisely at this point, then Shaul would be on a defense of the side of the Gentiles, and he would be against his own countrymen. And then he said, if you yourselves, being then from the line of Moses, you couldn't do what the Torah mandate you to do, why are you then shoving the Torah upon the Gentiles? He was protecting the task before the Gentiles as in a level of faith. However, Shaul did not break the biblical law himself. He kept the seventh day holy, so as the Gentiles of the period, but in a capacity of faith level and not covenant level. Every time you hear covenant, make sure you understand. Covenant means set apart, Hebrews, camp, Torah. Renewed covenant means faith, grace, Gentiles. Guidelines. They don't go by the Torah, they go by the guidelines. Because the Torah, when they are presented with, must be people from the camp, and they must be functioning in Ruach HaKodesh, 7 spirits, 7 functions. And then Ruach HaKodesh only gives the portions of the Torah tailor-made for each person. So then they can increase in their faith. And when they give the Torah comes then the functions, showing that there is so. So then they increase in their faith. So then we begin to understand that there is only a Mashiach, never broke a biblical law, but then he presented before the Gentiles the faith grace factor, yet being loyal to him in what he did. However, he then expected his people to set apart to be in their camps. As they were brought out of Egypt and they went to the camp, so they would be in a camp outside of Israel. But then the Gentiles, they would live by faith, and they would resume their duties in the world. The world's trade belongs to the Gentiles, not the set apart. The set apart, they are in the camps. They don't mix themselves with the world. They represent a kingdom to come government, and they don't involve themselves in the world's trade, neither the world's government. They only answer questions when the Gentiles, they come to the gates and they want to inquire of Yahweh, as it was before. So then they receive the 7 functions, or a function, so they can get answers of the questions. They return to their duties, and then works, they do what they were told from the Creator, and they return with a glad tiding. And there was joy in the camp. So then it started making more sense. So every time you hear the word covenant, have in mind, it's a damn covenant with Abraham. Gentiles are not part of it. Gentiles are not part of it because they don't speak the holy language, they don't speak the Creator's language, they don't understand the Torah. They can't be part of the damn covenant. So then, set apart, they take care of that part. The Gentiles, however, they have the faith factor. They are saved by faith. They are loyal to the faith. Whatsoever Yahshua did, they do in a level of faith. So then we read then the renewed covenant, and the renewed covenant is our guidelines. But then when it comes to the renewed covenant on a part of the Hebrews, for instance, a person can easily understand. Hebrews are the set apart. So then, the writings of the Hebrews, there are only portions of it, only for the enlightenment of the Gentiles, so they can understand a bit where they came from. But they don't go by those guidelines. Those guidelines in Hebrews, those are for the Hebrews. Those were guidelines given from Shaul in order for the set-apart people to be more in line with the understanding of grace. So they would not shove the Torah in the throats of the Gentiles. So then it started making more sense. So every time you hear or then you read from the Aramaic understanding, you are not going to find these in the falsified Bibles or in the twisted Bibles. You only find this delineation only in the Aramaic copy. And the Aramaic is very defined. And this is precisely what the Creator wanted of His people, to be separated, yet they would then shepherd the Gentiles. But they are not going to shepherd the Gentiles on their own. The Creator is behind them and also in them, and they are under the control every time. So they don't shove the Torah in the throats of the Gentiles. They give them only the portions that the Creator Himself wants them to know. So then the Torah becomes a situation that is under the control, but under the control of the Creator. He's the only person that can control it. So then the Gentiles are at liberty to resume their duties, and when they face problems, they come to the gates and inquire of Yahweh, as it was before. So then each side of the understanding becomes much clearer. Neither side get mixed with the other. But what's taking place in the world today, the set-apart people, they got lost in the world. They are involved in areas of the Gentiles that they shouldn't be. They are taking control over areas of the Gentiles' world that they should not be part of. The Creator wanted them to be in their camps, serving Him. And what are they doing? They are interfering with the Gentiles' trade in the world, and they shouldn't. Send them back to their camps, as they were told to be in. Told to be in the camps. Be there and be 100% loyal to the Torah and the prophets. And then only service then the Gentiles with the functions of Ruach Kodesh. So then the Gentiles, they can be at liberty without being in fear of having Torah shoved in their throats. This was never the plan of the Creator. But then the Hebrews, they have imposed themselves in the world, and the world then, without biblical understanding, ended up buying it. And they became secondary from this tiny group of people of the East, without understanding why these people should be in their camps. They have no part in the world's trade. They have to be absolutely 100% loyal to the Torah and the prophets in their camps, representing the kingdom to come government. And that's when then Shaul in Romans is stated very plainly and very concisely. It is worth reading because it's a very important portion that gives us the understanding of then both sides. There it is. Let every soul be subjected to the authorities of the kingdom to come government. These are then the Hebrews in their camps, only loyal to the Torah and the prophets, being representatives of the Creator Yahweh. So then when the people would make inquiries at the gate, then Shaul said, subject your souls before them, because they are from Elohim. And then afterwards, when you receive the ministrations and the words that you were inquiring from, then resume your duties. So this is the shadow understanding from the time of Shlomo or Solomon. Nations would come to him for what? To read the Torah? Absolutely not. They came with the problems of their countries and they want to inquire of Yahweh. In each of those, they got answers. And that's why he was then very rich, because they would come in with riches. But then the point is this: it's not for the Hebrews to be involved with the world system. The riches came from the world to them. Isaiah 61st chapter states then the Gentiles would service then the camps, the refurbishing of those cities, city churches, and then the Gentiles would serve them in a normal sense for them to train other groups, other people. So then they would go out and form another holy land. So then it's clearly a lot of confusion going on in this. So then we are then prepared then to understand the prophetic timeline, because the Creator is coming for vengeance. Then His Son never broke the biblical law, and for the second portion to be completed, He must be loyal also to the second. So then the false Messiah, from the Greco-Roman understanding, it's a false Messiah, because breaks the biblical law. Observance of the first day was never given. So then return to the Messiah, understanding that the Torah is only kept in the camps. Our capacity in a faith is to be loyal, but in a capacity of a faith. So then we are together with the Messiah, we are loyal to the seventh day, but we are not bound by a covenant. We are only having guidelines, and then we obviously subject ourselves when we come to the gates of the camps of the Hebrews. Simple and plain. And then the Hebrews don't mix themselves with the trade of the Gentiles. They are to be separated. They are interfering with the trade of the Gentiles when they shouldn't have. They must be separated as Yahweh brought them from Egypt. Much more coming up.